Hey. Hey, 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 hi. Hi out there. Hi, animal allies. I'm going to wait a minute, maybe 2 minutes as folks join us. We hope you're joining us. Tell your friends, share this so that more people will know. And we're just glad that you're here with us. How is everybody? How is everybody? Say hello if you'd like to. And what activism did you participate in this week? If you want to share that in the comments, we'd love to hear about that. Yeah, so tonight's a special night. In this live stream, we're very excited because we're going to be focusing on a recent win. I
Ooh.
know that this will recharge all you grassroots activists, street activists out there, and remind you not to give up, right? Because pressure campaigns work. And if you're currently and actively involved in Foie Gras campaign, feel free to share in the comments. Let us know what you're up to, where you are, and the nature of how your campaign is going in this long view of things. So yeah, let's get started. Let's get started, you guys. So welcome one and all to another AAC Activist Chat live stream where we keep you up to date on all things animal rights activism. Before we start our program, my name is Michelle Granberg. I'm a mentor and team member with Animal Activism Again, I like my mouth just wants to say mentorship, Animal
Thank
Activism
you.
Collective. For those new to AAC, AAC is a multinational program created to assist activists in reaching their goals and equipping them with the tools, community, and resources they need to boldly participate in our global animal liberation movement. Founded in 2020, AAC offers a 3-month mentorship program which pairs experienced activists with aspiring activists. And you can apply today to become a mentor or a mentee through our website, although we have a bit of a waiting list, so there's a little bit of a lag. Plus, we are more than a mentorship program. We offer free educational live streams and online trainings. We have a podcast called the Animal Liberation Hour. If you listen to the Animal Liberation, please comment, I listen. And we host large scale, in person, collaborative activism events around the country. We've had many at this point. We are a support system and a resource designed to empower grassroots activism. If you have participated in our in-person events, go ahead and put that in the chat as well. We love to have a shout out for that. And a reminder, our next in-person event is the Ohio occurrence in and around Cleveland. It is August 29th through the 31st, 2025. And we'll get that information in the comments. And please register if you plan to attend. Please, please register. All right, now moving on to our program. I want to give a warm welcome to Otter and Hannah of GNV Animal Defenders. They were able to rid Gainesville, Florida, of foie gras. As far as we know, Gainesville is just the second city in the world that has gone foie gras free through pressure campaigning alone. In 1 year's time, they pressured every restaurant in the city to stop serving foie gras. No legislation, just strategic, sustained campaigning. And foie gras has been a focus of campaigns around the country currently, still. So grassroots activists are paying attention and want to know how you guys did it. And for those of us joining us, we would love your questions in the comment section. Please keep them on topic, and we'll try to take those questions, as many as we can. But hey, you guys, welcome and congrats.
Hi,
Thank
thank you so
you.
much.
Oh my God, it's so great to have you, to see you here. And
Mhm.
you must be feeling pretty good. Are you still sort of in the afterglow
A little
of your
bit.
win, sort of, but I know life goes on and there's so much fight to do,
Yeah,
right?
it
So
feels like it's kind of been like chop 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 chop.
yes.
Like there's more to do, of course. But it has been really good and it felt good to be able to win this. I don't know. I think I had hope that it was going to happen from the start, but it was definitely a bit of a journey and it came with its ups and downs.
Yeah, well, it's good to pause, take a moment to sort of reflect back, like what we're doing now, and to really kind of revel in it before we move on on to
Yeah.
the next. But so for both of you, like how and why did you get started in Gainesville? Like what was the impetus for targeting foie gras there?
Do you want me to go?
No, I'll go. We had just gotten back from the convergence y'all had in New York last year.
Yeah.
And y'all won that one. It was what, Mark Jacobs?
Yeah.
Mark Jacobs. I don't know. And we felt really inspired because that was a massive win. And it took pressure campaigns to get that to work. So we felt inspired. So we just like got back and we were like, there's no animal rights group here. Let's do it. Um, that was pretty much it. We just like made an account and we started looking up all the restaurants for.
I think I have something to add
Go,
to
go ahead.
that. Well, I had met like specifically like young organizers in Richmond, Virginia, and I was like, you guys are out doing it. Like I could then they like were like, you could do this. And there was a few people who were like, we would be willing to like travel to you. And I was like, no way. Like I could get like cool people from around the US to just come and help us with campaigns. Like that would be awesome. But even it wouldn't have started if we didn't start with AAC or yeah, I got it right. 2 years ago, I guess it's 2.5 years ago now. That's when we started doing activism. But anyways, I also feel like we were involved in activism locally, on like human rights things, and that made me just know the activist community where I live. And I felt confident starting a pressure campaign for foie gras because we met a lot of vegans through that. And we also met just people who aren't vegan who are okay with doing protests for foie gras because it's torture even in the eyes of somebody who's not normally involved in animal rights. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think that sums it up.
Yeah, so we're happy to provide what we provide at AAC, but thank you guys for stepping up. Really, it wouldn't have happened without you guys stepping up. So thank you. I know it's been a learning experience, and it really just shows that you could be a novice. Not that you were newbies. You weren't. You weren't beginners, but you were still had not done something like this before, and you stepped up. So I think that's awesome. So is it correct when we say it was about a year? Took about a year? Can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about the arc of that, the timeline, and how that sort of
Yes.
unfolded? And
So we started in either late May or early June of 2024. And then we got our win by mid-June, I want to say, of this year. And so, yeah, that's kind of how that's what was the question?
no, you answered it. I
There
wanted to
you
make
go.
sure it was like a year. And
Yeah.
boy, oh boy, yeah. I mean, talk about just sort of expeditious in that way. So we want to talk more about, why it was such a relatively fast win. A year is a relatively fast amount of time. So did you want to, Hannah, did you want to add anything to what what was said about the
Um,
timeline?
I guess I just want to talk a little about our targets. And the first one was probably our most difficult. They were very
Hesitant?
they were hesitant. They were crazy. Um, very mad at us. But once we won with them, the next two were like fairly simple. And I think it was mostly because Gainesville's a small town and they heard about what we've done.
Mm.
Um, so I don't know. Two of the wins were like super quick, weeks, few days maybe. We had left for a while, so
Yeah.
that was a lot of it. We were gone in Germany for 3 months, so we had to take a break.
And then we didn't have a car, so it's hard to protest and lead things without a car. And then we finally got a car because we were trying to go car free. We're eco girls. Um, and yeah, so once we got a car and we came back to Gainesville, we're like, all right, there's one place left. We've got to do it. And so we set up a meeting because we live in a college town, so a lot of the population is transient. So a lot of the people who had been involved before might not be around anymore or like moved somewhere else, kind of thing. Um, and so yeah, we did a meeting and I got like 30 people to show up just by, and a lot of them were new faces. I did know some of them just because like we had worked on anti-slaughterhouse stuff in our county before. They wanted to do a like state funded slaughterhouse. That didn't get passed though, so thank God. That was the work of a lot of other people, but we were involved in that. But anyways, yeah, we saw a lot of new faces, and then we basically were like, okay, well, let's do things. And that really motivated me to see like so many new faces, and we got things rolling. And within like 2 weeks of starting our campaign against Sensei, they dropped. So
And how much of that do you maybe attribute to sort of the critical mass, the amount of people you had, or
no,
not? It
not
wasn't
at
that at
all.
all. It was just the quality of the pressuring,
I think so.
and the
Yeah,
consistency.
yeah.
Overall, if you could point to just a couple of the main elements of why
Yeah.
your pressure campaign worked.
So I will say, okay, starting from the beginning, we've it was very we did an email. We sent out an email that was um we had help from Animal Activism Collective the whole time, basically. Somebody else, already doing foie gras campaigns, they helped us out with formatting the email to send to restaurants before you start actually targeting them, to try to get them to drop without you having to do anything, because that's ideal.
Yeah.
So we sent out the email and they ignored it. And so our friends were in town. I think we were doing maybe stuff for the slaughterhouse. What do you think?
Yeah, you're petitioning.
Oh yeah, yeah. So um our friends were in town, so we were like, let's take advantage of this opportunity. We disrupted them and they like were like taking videos of my face and stuff. They were like so upset. And it's like a mile from where I work too. So somebody recognized me, but it was all okay. It's okay to protest. You're allowed to protest. Um, but anyways, we ended up getting like crazy like videos and stuff. It's still on AAC's page. Like the head chef sent a video of his feces in the toilet to our Instagram page. It was crazy. And then later on, I accidentally made the mistake of posting our protest to our Instagram page. I was a new organizer, okay. And they found out and they counter protested us, which was it was a lot for somebody who's new to organizing. I didn't know how to respond to that, but
Hmm.
we just got on public property. Cops came eventually. We stood our ground basically. But it was they were like kind of violent and that was not
Hmm.
cool. And it was scary for some people who were like new to activism. So I'd say that was like a learning curve that we experienced with our first target. We probably did like 3 separate protests, and it took a couple days after the third protest, but we were in communication with them through our email. And eventually they said, we'll drop it. And do you have any details to add on that?
We had our lovely journalist friend
Oh,
write an article
Hmm.
every time, and I think that was a big help
hmm
because a lot of people saw it and it made them look really bad. They messed up. They they had trapped some of our people in their restaurant and like locked the door and didn't let them out. So made them look really bad and it got around, and I think that was like the final budge they needed to be like, we'll stop, please. And they did. So
yeah, they didn't like the publicity that was coming out because they were acting kind of insane themselves. We had video
Yeah.
footage of that. Um, yeah, it was a very interesting campaign. But they did try to, someone tried to do a speak out within the restaurant and they closed the doors on them and tried to have them arrested. But they all ended up okay. So yeah,
Wow. Talk about like right out of the gate.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think like day one,
it was humbling.
what you can imagine, I was humbling, right? What you can imagine would happen,
Yeah.
and here you sit on the other side of it, like even if it seemed catastrophic at the time, it worked itself out, but certainly I'm sure folks are open to your advice. I mean, things are unpredictable, so you can't like give exact formulas for what to do when things get crazy
Mhm.
like they did, but I'm sure in hindsight you might have some advice, or and also how the media that you engaged, that was somebody, an activist, or that was somebody you knew? Like, how did that
A
relationship?
friend.
We met him through
Fun.
human rights activism, and we knew him pretty well from
Mm.
being like in close contact for a while, but he didn't do activism. He claims he doesn't do activism, but he wanted to cover our protest because he's very passionate about journalism. So, yeah, get you some friends like that.
Yeah, folks, befriend someone in the media.
Yeah,
It works out well. So, do you want to mention the names of the restaurants or not?
I don't mind. The
Yeah,
first one was
please,
the
please do.
Rashiyama.
Right? That was the first one to
Um,
go.
That was our first target, and then we
Okay.
went to Fehrenbachers. It's a German name. It means like fire baker, I believe.
Is it a German restaurant?
No, it's strange. It's called like Meats and Eats. I think it's kind of like a deli. They sell like lots of sandwiches, but also like just cuts of dead animals. Yeah. And they
And the
did,
first one was a Japanese restaurant?
yes,
Okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
you're good. Um, they They did sell foie gras, and then we were emailing, I believe, back and forth, and they're like, we haven't stocked that in a couple of months. Like, we won't be selling it again. Like, it's okay. And so I was like, okay, I guess it's a win. Um, then
Yeah.
our third place, I was kind of intimidated by this one. Um, what was it? Ember's
Embers.
Grill. Yeah, it was called Ember's Grill, and they were like a very well-known steakhouse in the area and well rated, well regarded. The person who ran it was like kind of like a community member, and it was not a good place to protest just because it was next to like a huge road. Um, and if you know Florida, it's very hot here, so that doesn't help either. Um, and so I wasn't looking forward to this one, but we were emailing and they gave us a really vague answer at first, because they said, okay, well, we do like a rotating menu. And so we haven't made our menu yet for like the next quarter, however long they are. And we're like, okay, but will you be selling foie gras? And eventually we got a commitment not to sell foie gras from just emailing, I believe. Um, and then that brings us to the point where I think I had gone into Sensei, which was our last target. So this was all happening between June and August. So we could have gotten the win much faster, honestly. So our last target, I probably went in mid-July of last year
Hmm.
to the restaurant to talk to people. They claimed that nobody was around to talk. And so I left like a note for the manager after I had already emailed with no response. And never heard back. And then we had a road trip across the country. We were moving, and then we went to Germany. So there was a long break between like August and I guess early June of this year.
Hmm.
Um, that we didn't do any, we really didn't do much local activism here. We kind of took a little bit of break because we were in Germany and then we were car free for a bit. Um, I guess after coming back in January, I did some, I wrote some papers on like the local shelter and the conditions there. But past that,
Hmm.
I was not doing much on the ground activism until when we had our meeting in May, and then we picked up our foie gras campaigns again in June. But
Nice.
yeah,
Nice. Pretty, again, it's just as a timeline, it went pretty progressively forward, right? With is not as many stops and blocks and barriers as I guess there could have been.
yeah,
So things were ripe for some change there, but again, it was all of your small actions and big actions, your strategies and your perseverance. But I want to backtrack too for people who are thinking of organizing, of course, and who are organizing currently in terms of the contact. You had mostly email, it was mostly through email with and who did you, like, who was the person that you, was your main point of contact? Same type of role? Did they all have the same type of role in the restaurant, or are restaurants different? And then you finally had face to face. Face to face is more ideal because it's harder for people to say no when you're this real person, right? In the flesh, standing there. And when you finally, did they offer an official in writing statement, or did you ask them for that, or how did you get to the point where you now accepted that, like, okay, it's official? And a lot of questions, right? Are you planning to keep checking back? Do you trust them? And do you want to keep checking back in on the menu from time to time?
Whenever we had our animal rights meeting in May, we had a few volunteers go and check the 3 restaurants that we had gotten to drop. And they in fact still dropped. We tried to be undercover about it, like, oh, I'm interested in eating. Do you have foie gras? And we made sure they were new faces so that they didn't recognize us. And yeah, we still have a foie gras commitment from the 3 restaurants, or at least when strangers came in and asked, they didn't say they had foie gras. So I say that's a win. As far as a written communication, they were mostly just through emails where they said pretty plainly, we're not selling foie gras anymore and we will not in the
Yeah.
future, kind of
Oh,
deal.
that's right. Yeah, you got that right. You can.
And that was for all 4 targets.
Yeah.
As far as who we emailed, Hannah, you want to speak on that?
I was majority the email person. Some restaurants it was hard to find an email, but like Embers, for example, we had to do some deep digging for that. But usually they'll have their email like on their website or whatever, and you can just email to whoever it goes to. It goes to someone with the ability to get it to higher up places, usually. Um, they, I don't know, I kind of just trust them when they say it because I think by the time they feel like they need to reply back to us, they give up. They don't want to hear from us again. They don't want to see us again. And I think they know if we found out they were selling that we'd
Be back,
be back.
as the chant implies.
So I was never really worried about them like going back on what they told us. But we also have people check. So if they do.
I'm ready for them to be sneaky.
Yeah.
I imagined it could happen, so I was a little paranoid. I was like, let's make sure before we move on to the last one, let's make sure. But yeah.
Yes. Yes. Some of it's on faith, but at the same time, they have everything to lose and nothing to gain from returning to it, especially once they've said they're going to give it up. Then they really seem inauthentic and disingenuous and liars,
Yeah.
perhaps. And their reputation is already at stake here. They're not looking good from their actions. Then to, on top of that, you know, so, and did you do mass emailing campaign and phone?
We
Or you
did
didn't even do
like
that?
Instagram comments,
We did
Instagram
phone
comments.
some
text too.
phones.
Yeah, and especially with our first target was the most hesitant of all of them. And we definitely did like email, phone, however you want to get in contact with them and ask them to go foie gras free. We did that. And I think that one, how long do you think that restaurant lasted? Like 3 weeks?
Arashiano,
Yeah.
2 weeks.
It was
I'd
like
say
pre-protest.
yeah.
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 And is that with you showing up like every day for that two
Oh
weeks?
no, it was
Or
probably
every
like
other day? Or
every 2 days, maybe,
What do you mean?
like how often we showed up there doing protests.
No, we did like 3 protests total over
I
like three
know.
oh
weeks.
my God.
Yeah, like not that much. It was like really short. We
I had
just
limited capacity and
Yeah.
it was I wanted to organize it when we could get as many people as possible. Somehow, so when we had somebody go, okay, so one time we had this brilliant idea to protest outside. And before we protested, we had 2 activists go in and they were going to sit down and be like, oh my gosh, what's that commotion outside? You guys sell foie gras? What is that? Like, just kind of make like pretend to be like a regular customer and be icked out by the fact that they sell foie gras is the idea.
Yeah.
And when that happened, um, we were protesting outside, but they didn't hear us, so they were a bit confused. And I guess somebody went a little bit off script and she started to do like a speak out, but we had already known that like this target was kind of crazy. Just to put it like as plainly as
Mhm.
possible. And that's when they got locked in the restaurant. Um, they were very interesting, Rashiyama. But anyways, they got let free. The cops tried to detain them and then just let them go. Um, and that was the last action that we had before they dropped. So maybe it was still effective, even though it was very chaotic.
Obviously, they did not want a repeat of
Yeah.
that. And I don't think that culturally that there is a lot of street activism in Japan, I believe. I know an
Yeah.
activist there. I think he has told me that. So it must have maybe it was their overreaction,
Yeah.
was out of just like what is happening, panic, like what is going on, and not really understanding that. Maybe they started to understand it after the second time or
Yes.
the third time, and like, oh, they have an ask. This is actually what they're focused on. It's
Mhm.
not about us or destroying something. It's about taking foie gras off the menu, and that was that you would go away.
We tried
I
to put
guess you made that clear. Did you sort of make that clear?
Yeah. We tried to put it as plainly as possible. We spelled it out very well, but there was still this like they had this idea that because they were the first restaurant that we targeted locally, they thought that, we're going after them for some specific reason, that it was personal. And it didn't help that they were an Asian restaurant. So because they thought we were racist. That was not the case. So maybe a word of advice, go for a very plain restaurant first if you have that option.
Yeah.
Because then they know, like, okay, it's not just you. I'm targeting everyone with this on their menu. That's my idea.
Yeah, that's a good piece of advice. Although, do we find when it comes to foie gras, it's mostly um, sort of traditional kinds of foods that maybe are more outside of the US. It's not a US dish, right?
No,
It's not an American dish, so you would more likely find it in, other
more ethnic food.
in more ethnic food restaurants.
Yeah, I noticed it.
Nonetheless, it's still good advice for all kinds of other campaigns,
Yeah,
you know.
don't make it seem like they're being targeted for any specific reason other than the animal abuse.
Okay. Good. I want to keep talking about this. We do have a question, so I'm going to
Yay.
throw you this question from our comment section on YouTube, which is, what would you say to people who don't think a small group can make a difference?
Our last target, we didn't protest technically. We did go there and we used pressure, but we didn't protest. I think you can do really creative things.
Yeah, especially if it's not so our town is not used to activists, especially confrontational activists, with a real target and a real gain, something to gain, some like a pressure campaign. Not used to that here. So our first target, we got trespassed from them. Thankfully, they were really close to public property. Um, and so we just stood on the public property and protested them from there. But our last target, we couldn't do that. And so we kind of had to think strategically about like what could we do if we do need to escalate. Um, and it took three of us, not even two of us. It was not like, I guess, I don't know, I guess we could talk about it. Um,
Up to you.
It's fine.
we used personal alarms.
Ah,
Yeah, it's
so
not,
you just made a lot of noise. Is that what you're saying?
yeah,
You
we
just
just made a lot of noise
up
and we got
leveled the
out of there.
noise.
Yeah, it was one time, and that's all it really. That was like we really did. We did calls. We did like comments on their Instagram, and they blocked us all.
Tried to go twice.
I chalked in front of their restaurant while they were like before they opened, with the aim that like this will send like a clear message. Like they know why we're targeting them. They know by now that they're our last target, that everyone else in Gainesville's dropped. And when that didn't work, we were like, okay, well, we'll take this risk. Um, and nothing negative happened on our end. I can't say exactly if that's like my advice or if I advise you to do that, but it worked for us. And yeah.
Absolutely. It's almost like a great classic sort of example.
Yeah.
But maybe in case we have a few people on the live stream with us who aren't as familiar with what a pressure campaign is, maybe you could backtrack and just like define pressure campaign. And I know that you're already pointing to one of the key pillars of a pressure campaign, which is escalation, and it's got to be multi-prong, right?
Yeah.
Multi-strategy, multi-prong, and creativity is
Yeah.
also one of the essential pieces. So can you talk a little bit about those for folks who are listening?
Yeah. As far as pressure campaigns, I guess like the idea is that you have a specific ask that you think is reasonable. So for instance, we're not going to a slaughterhouse and asking them to close down shop. As much as I want to do that, that's where all of their money's coming from. So it's not going to be something that we're going to be. I think maybe if we were like really strategic and awesome at it and really organized, maybe we could. But I think that's why generally pressure campaigns are in the form of fur and foie gras right now, maybe vivisection and other things like that. Um, but anyways, you go to the place of business with an ask, and if they don't deliver, you have different ways of targeting them, like through people who work directly with them. They're like distributors and things like that, where they get their supplies from. Um, or yeah, you just try to hit it at different angles. Do you have anything to add?
No, that was really good.
Yeah.
No, that was a great explanation and starting to point out sort of tertiary targets. And in New York, you were with us, I don't know, in New
Yeah.
York, we do home demos and, things like that. And we have a great, by the way, training on pressure campaigns by our Penny at AAC, and folks can go ahead and look after this on the on our YouTube channel for that as well. And so I know we talk about in general sort of foie gras being like low hanging fruit. We always and fur being low hanging fruit because the public perception is already mostly against how unnecessary these horrific practices are. Are you, I don't know, are you hopeful about the larger foie gras campaign and how everybody's pretty much collaborating, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Kind of organizing together and aware of one another. And so how do you view sort of the network of foie gras alliances and campaigns and how important that is?
I think it's really nice that we have like the Signal chat, the Duck Alliance, and different things to learn from other strategies and other campaigns, what they do. And I think that it's really good that we've become more unified and we have like this vision together. I think that naturally there's going to be people who don't want to do confrontational things, and that maybe don't want to do pressure campaigns, but I think that as much as we can, we should try to focus on and getting people on the same page so that we have more power, if that makes sense. Because if we're all working on different things in our own little corners, then that's not going to lead us anywhere. And I think that the United States has just two main foie gras suppliers. They went out of business, and maybe the United States could be free of foie gras at some point.
Yeah, if anybody has any inside scoop on that even further, please put it in the comment section. We'd like to know. Is that
Hudson
correct?
Valley and Hudson Valley and LaBelle, I think, are the two main ones. Can you?
And that's public information, obviously, right?
Yeah.
And and do we know where they are located? Not that
New York, I think. Yeah.
Hudson is the main one.
Yeah. And from my research as well, there's countries that outlawed the production of foie gras, such as Germany, but they still sell foie gras, which is kind of annoying.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's like, how can you recognize that it's bad enough that you don't want it happening, like the process of it happening in your country, but you don't want to just outlaw it outright?
Mm.
But anyways, that kind of leads into like what we're trying to do next. We're trying to work with Animal Rights Initiative to get it banned so that nobody can pick it up again, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that was another question we have in the comments. But Trey just wanted to reminds us as both are in New York, right near each other, and there's also small ones in Louisiana and Minnesota.
Interesting.
So, and just to also sort of reflect back on what you were saying about pressure campaigns, about the ask, we want to emphasize how important a specific, like doable, it's got to be able to be, actually doable the ask. It can't be so big that there's such a chain involved in it. It needs to be something that could be as immediate as possible. And you have to be clear about the specific ask. So I just wanted to sort of revisit that for a moment. But yeah, the question from Josh from the comments is, what is next for you now that foie gras is out of Gainesville? What if you want to share that, if you're ready
Yeah.
to share that, go ahead.
Do you want to share, Hannah?
Yeah, so
You're not in the camera.
we want to do fur, but we live in a small town. There's no like
We're a medium-sized city. I'm from a small town. This is not a small town.
I was going to ask. Okay.
there's no like bougie stores that sell like fur.
Thankfully.
But there's one place, it's a sex store and they sell
It's an adult supermarket.
they
They sell fox fur butt plugs, and it's actually a chain, so it'd be a bit of a stretch for like, since we only have worked with like individual restaurants, it would be probably a little bit more strategic for us. But like four of the places are in Florida, so if any Florida activists want to get involved in this, we've got places throughout. Um, but anyways, yeah, I think they have seven stores total, and one of them is in Gainesville. So that's just an idea right now. We're still working
Sure.
on.
And would the ask be for them just to remove the fox for what you
Yeah.
said? What you said?
Yes. Yeah, we think that's just completely unnecessary, and I think that most people would agree. Use polyurethane. I don't know.
And how do you know it's real fox fur? Because you just
It
know
says
it
it.
because it says it right on
Yeah.
their
It's
website or you've been in there.
I went in person and it says that it's real fox fur, and I researched the product online. But yeah, that is potentially our next target. My cat's crying. I'm gonna let her in.
Okay. She's got an opinion. It's all good. So, we're open for questions, more questions and that may come in. We'll field those questions, or do we have some here? Oh, all right. Here's a question. Um, hmm, I'm afraid to ask it, but because I think it can be dangerous to review storms because they're often tied to people's real names and people have been sued. So any feedback or advice on that? When you're leaving, I guess it's saying when you do the comment storms, they're
Yeah.
coming through people's profiles,
Mhm.
which identify us. If people are using their actual name, people have been sued. So any suggestions for that with the should some people get like an account just for that?
I think maybe be like mindful of what you say,
Yeah,
because they can't sue you for just like
saying, "Hey, foie gras is terrible. Stop selling it." I don't think that's.
they
I'm
can't
not a
sue
lawyer.
you for that. But if
Um,
you threaten them, yeah, I think if you're mindful of what you say and if that is something you're worried about, don't, I think you should never do anything you don't feel comfortable doing.
yeah.
And if you're worried about getting sued for that reason, I'd maybe work around that. You can make a fake account to change your
Um,
name on Instagram, go private.
So I also don't use my face as my profile photo or my name on my Instagram, and my account's private. So I think that helps. I think I think that's probably a good idea for anyone, especially if you're any sort of leader. And yeah, as Trey says, you can be sued for anything. But activists have been sued and they've won, so I guess take that with I don't know,
Take
be
that for
cautious.
what it is. That's good news, but that doesn't mean we take all kinds of risks, and certainly never break the law, in that way. That's kind of yeah, that's important. And so we're sort of venturing into security culture a little bit, right? Would you say?
Yeah.
You want to tell folks in your own sort of plain words what security culture is and the role that plays in pressure campaigns? Be very, very general. Again,
Um,
a wonderful training on that.
I I try not to use my real name. I try to encourage others to do the same. Anything that you talk about that might not be fully legal, you should probably talk about it away from your phone, away from people you don't know, in private, that
Mhm.
kind of thing. But also, yeah, don't go yelling people's names at protests or things like that because you never know. I think it's good to assume maybe that there's an infiltrator. Not that we want to be paranoid of people in the movement, but sometimes you just want to be mindful of what the things you say, things like that. But
Yep.
yeah, I try
Very
not to
important.
I try not to use my legal name as much.
Yeah,
Um,
as a rule of thumb,
yeah,
get used to that and certainly don't use other people's names. That's
yeah,
something we always have to remind each other of. So there's more we're unpacking here. There's a question.
yeah.
How much do you think Google or Yelp reviews can contribute to them dropping? Is that something during your campaigns, you encourage people to write reviews
People
on Yelp
people
or
kind of did
Google?
it on their own. I've heard that I think that comments are way less risky when it comes to getting sued than putting a review that's negative. That's why I don't encourage Google or Yelp reviews of that sort. I think you could probably say something to the extent that this is just my personal opinion, but foie gras is terrible. I can't believe they have it on their menu. I think that's probably okay.
Mm.
But once again, I think it's probably a little bit more risky than comments. Hannah, you
What do
look
you
like
think,
you want to
Hannah?
I
say something.
I like doing the Google reviews. I think that is something people check way more than like people's Instagrams, you know? And I think bad publicity is like a killer. I think that is something businesses really try to avoid. And if people can see the bad things they're doing or people being unhappy with what they're doing, then they're more likely to want to make the people happy, you know? I always check Google reviews. I'm like chronically looking at that. Whenever I go to a new place, I'm looking. I
Mm.
look at where I work all the time. I'm always looking. I think it's like
An addiction.
it's an addiction, really, but I think it's so helpful.
That's
I
a
don't
new one.
usually like go on if I go out to eat, I don't feel like I go
Mm.
look at their Instagram comments, you know. I think it's good to get the owner's attention or whoever runs it. But I think it's also harder maybe to get rid of Google reviews, especially if you write something authentic, make it sound legit. Um,
Well,
I'm
I
not.
mean, it's certainly a contributing factor. I mean, it is part of the
Yeah,
pressure. It's part of building pressure.
Yeah.
It's part of making them uncomfortable
yeah.
and
I think it's
forcing the issue
really,
before their eyes. So it
yeah,
certainly doesn't doesn't help
yeah.
them.
I think with at our last campaign we did, we kind of made it a big point to make him look, the owner, really bad. So I made these little flyers that said that he was like the number one animal abuser, right? Which, you know, but if people saw that, they would be upset, you know? And I think that's like a big thing is making them look really bad.
I I
That's how
think
I feel. I don't know.
it depends on their personality. Some people who head a restaurant, they'll hear you and they're stommered, so they put their feet in the ground.
Mm.
But I think that if there's somebody who really cares about their ego and like how they're viewed by their patrons, then that might really bother them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feel out the owners if able.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like a lot of restaurant owners care a lot about how their restaurant comes off as.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I hope, we're giving folks, we're speaking to potential organizers and folks who are organizing, and we'd love to hear from that if you're organizing in another city, and what your plan is and what questions you might have as well. But some of the tips that are really, coming through here and what you learned, And we have a question sort of in that direction. What part of the process do you feel most proud of now that foie gras is no longer being sold at any restaurants in your city? Yeah, like, and I'm asking you, what did you discover doesn't work well?
Mhm.
And what surprised you in terms of the actions or strategies that worked even better, that exceeded your expectations? Any thoughts?
Okay. Um, I think the part that I'm most proud of is like it really wasn't me, but it was kind of like reaching out to people who knew what they were doing. I think that was probably like and being like learning how to form connections within the animal rights community. And that's like how Animal Activism Collective has helped us so much is that like we can rely on the wisdom of older or not older necessarily, but like more experienced organizers. Um, that has helped us incredibly, and I'm really happy that we are part of this network of animal activists. Um, but anyways, as far as what works, I think just continued pressure. I think at the end of the day, they don't want to worry about protesters showing up on a busy Saturday night. And so even if they're stubborn, even if they want to dig their heels in the ground and say, this is a free country, I came here to do this and I'm going to do this, like I'm not going to have a bunch of uh, lived up college students tell me what to do. Then yeah, I think it's continued pressure that makes the biggest difference and just staying persistent and not giving up. It was there was definitely times when I was like, do we need to escalate? Like what do we need to do? Like what will be the final straw?
Mhm.
And I think that um a lot of times it wasn't actually necessary to escalate and we didn't, which was nice because you can put yourself at a higher risk of getting sued or things like that. Like um but yeah, I think as far as what didn't work, I don't know. Because like I didn't collect like a survey at the end. Like, what part of this process did you hate the most? What part like didn't work for you and your decision to go foie gras free?
Right.
I think that a lot of these people don't I think like as far as like the moral approach, like, oh hey, please don't sell foie gras. Like, I don't think that's working. I try it. I tried it like 4 times with our last target, in the form of emails and going in person. That didn't work for us. Because I was trying to avoid having to protest because I was worried about getting trespassed from the site,
Mm.
since they were on a private plaza. But yeah, I don't know. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. Hannah, do you have anything you want to add to that? Pretty,
No, that was good. I think it all kind of works, you know? I think if you can get under their skin and bother them enough, all of it is like super impactful.
Yeah.
I agree. And it's only in hindsight that you can see sort of the progression of it, but you don't know exactly what the turning point is. So probably you guys are at some point like, this isn't working, it's not going to work, nothing's changing, they're just digging their heels in, and it was just around the corner, you
Yeah.
know? So, that's another reminder to activists and organizers especially to hang in there. It is a marathon, not a sprint, but that's why we need to have wins like you've had, and we need to hear about it. We need to share about it, and we need to talk about it, and we need to gather and take away from that, whatever we can in terms of going forward. That there was someone who has a comment about the previous when you were talking about your new possible campaign with the store,
Yes.
the adult store.
The
Yes.
adult.
They say you can emphasize the concept of consent and how important that is and how that is violated with fur products. And maybe comparing the idea of it's a sex store, but there's
Yeah.
got to be two consenting adults participating in that. And then comparing that to,
No
well, what about the
foxes.
animals? They're not giving consent.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. I think so. We've discussed this at like an animal rights meeting, and one person was like, "What if we send off the wrong message?" And I think that's a good idea, is to include things that like you can be sex positive while still not being okay with this.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah. fur is it's horrible and it doesn't belong in the bedroom. Or you know, like it belongs on animals in the wild, not us.
Yeah.
And I think we can probably send that message clearly. I think it'll be a strategic win though, if because we haven't emailed them yet or anything to that extent. I think it's interesting because like some people will already frown upon an adult store. And so it's like um they're probably less likely to fall for like the to care about being shamed, if that makes sense, because they're already in that situation where like some people were shamed like the things that they do, and we're not there to do that. It's just about the fur. Yeah, it'll be interesting if we do pick that one up. But we also are talking to people about we're talking to the Animal Rights Initiative about legislative change. And so I think they said August they have like some spots available for mentorship, and so we might be able to fund a mentorship through Animal Rights Initiative, and then they can help us do the legislative change, and then we wouldn't even need to protest the adult store. So we'll see. We're in the
Wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't that be cool? Just
yeah.
directly changing legislation as a possibility. And we'll put ARI, Animal Rights Initiative, their information, and hopefully we'll get them on a live stream as well. In the comment section, we can do that. So back to organizers again, maybe just one first step, like first step for an organizer. Of course, first step is like identifying your targets. And then what about anything you want to say about the research piece of it? Any suggestions or advice with how to dive deeply into the research so that you're as well prepared as possible? Anything that you remember from that?
I love the research part like a lot. It feels so like mischievous. I don't know.
Behind the scenes.
Like
Yeah.
you're a private investigator, like, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's like really important to figure out who is working there, who the owner is, public and private lines, if home demos are legal, their home address, even if they're not legal.
No, no.
Not to go there and do that, but
Right.
just to know.
Never.
Um, Learn everything you can. It's like
Yeah.
crazy what you can find online by just looking up like the restaurant name.
I think we use Sunbiz to find out about it, but I think it might be a Florida thing. I don't know if it's United States or not. But yeah, I think the research part of it is important. You want to stalk their Instagram, stalk their Facebook, figure out as much as you humanely can about them. Um, Maybe go in person. Like if you're trying to hit like tertiary targets or like people who distribute to them, things like that, it might be good to like scope out your target, see. Sorry, we don't stalk, we just peruse.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I think that's kind of the take that we go for. And it's good to know as much as you possibly can about them before you start an active campaign against them, I think.
Yeah. Makes sense not to go in blind.
Yeah, just learn like everything you possibly can is all I can say.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is strategic because they're going to be like, wow, they've done their research.
Yeah.
You know, they're not, this is not random and unorganized.
Yeah, no.
This
Yeah.
is not, even though it might appear chaotic, it's not. It's organized, it's thought out, it's peaceful,
Yeah.
even though it's loud.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, I think we'll wrap up in a few minutes, but let's see, is there any other questions out there that want to come right now? We can take another question or so. And did we not cover anything? Is there anything we didn't cover or um
I maybe want to touch on like if you're looking to get more people involved,
hmm,
we do like film screenings for the public and we do benefit shows and we put flyers up for like overall animal rights meetings and we see faces like
New faces.
every time.
Yeah.
We've only done two, but at least like 20 to 12 people show up every time. And I don't know. I think it's important to like reach your community.
To me, it's really important to take seriously or try to take seriously all the concerns that your community has. I'm trying to like branch it out to non-vegans as well because like we're only so big of a movement. And I'm trying to grow it. And I think that like if it weren't for I don't know, I didn't know any other vegans when I went vegan, but I think that like knowing vegans probably really does help going vegan. And being in the animal rights scene, you probably are more likely to. But anyways, I try to, my goal as an organizer for Gainesville is I'm just trying to kind of come at it from different angles. I don't really like doing street outreach, but we have an AV cube, and so I encourage people to do it through there if they really feel like it. But we do film screenings for that purpose, that we can get people to show up that are new and kind of get interested in activism or veganism through that avenue. For me, it was a film that made me go vegan, and then eventually another film that made me an activist, actually. So it was What the Health and then Earthlings. But yeah, and then we take seriously any sort of like interest that the community has. So for instance, one of them was like improving vegan options at restaurants around Gainesville. Like we're trying to get different fronts, let people get involved in animal rights however they feel fit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, remembering that you're a resource
Hmm.
that people are finding if you're searchable. People are out right now looking for a place to start. And sometimes that's the, I mean, that's what AAC tries to do too, provide that, bridge through
Yeah.
mentoring and resources and, events in that way. And so, to create community, we always say is super important, also super important for managing burnout. I usually ask my guests that question too. So maybe think about that as sort of a way out of, how do you manage burnout and stress of being an activist? But find your tribe is always one of the biggest recommendations. Find your tribe so you don't feel alone and meet people where they are in their activism journey.
Yeah.
Not just for experienced activists, but for beginning activists, you know, uh, maybe a more gentle sort of easing in, offering screenings, or outreach opportunities or tabling opportunities or leafletting opportunities that aren't as much the intense forms.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's awesome. So then do you want to answer that question, like how you manage, any tips for managing burnout or fatigue or any of that, or you're just supercharged, so right now you are.
I think that I've always been a perfectionist, so if somebody's relying on me, then I try to be as accountable as possible. Um, and that does weigh on me. But I use when I'm at work, I do animal rights activism stuff, like the behind the scenes things during my downtime. Um, and so that kind of helps is if you have like if you can just pick it up during time that you're being paid, because most of us have full-time jobs that are not animal rights activism, or at least I don't know, after going to like the New York convergence, I feel like that's not true. But um yeah, that's kind of what I do. And then I like to put responsibilities on other people as well. So being like the main person is hard. Trying to
Give
coordinate
them
things is hard.
tasks,
But
Steve.
yeah, I like to hand out tasks to other people. Um, and that itself is its own labor, trying to like find the appropriate person and, making sure they do things correctly. But yeah, I
Mm.
don't know. Just take on whatever you feel comfortable taking on and nothing more, I guess.
Yeah, know your limits, know your boundaries, delegate.
Hmm. Yeah.
Uh, a good team is very essential, very important. So it's not just ever on one person. That's, that's a surefire formula for burning out and
Yeah.
leaving the movement. We really don't want anybody to leave the movement. We want more people joining the movement, right? So anything else, Hannah or Otter, about, maybe final words of hope or words that you would offer new vegans or new activists
Yeah.
or new organizers?
I think reach out to your resources. I think most people are willing to help. Get involved in some Signal group chats if you're a new organizer so that you can figure out like how to approach things and how other people are doing things. I think that there's no reason to reinvent the wheel on it. So just follow them. You can try to follow the model, be creative and be willing to adapt, but I think that's like the idea. Um, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I like to think about like I'm a very like emotional person, so I think a lot about like the animals themselves and that helps fuel me, I guess.
Yeah. So now we're going to think about the ducks right now that we're helping in
Yeah.
that way. Hannah, anything you want to add to that, or any announcements or calls to action or anything else in terms of, or and how can people find you?
GNV.Animal Defenders on Instagram,
And
and we have Facebook.
Gainesville Animal Defenders, I think, on Facebook.
That's it for now.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I don't I don't want to like downplay what we did or anything, but it wasn't super, super hard. I think people are really scared. And I think if you just give it a shot and try, I think everyone could do it,
With a bit of
honestly.
planning. Planning is necessary.
You'll get high on the victories and you'll want to fucking knock them all out. Sorry.
Leap.
But I just think it's important to make the effort, or do what you can at least. And everything's appreciated. Everything works.
Absolutely. These animals don't have a voice, or they don't have a voice to speak English, and so we are there on their behalf, so that is certainly something to keep front and center. And like Hannah just said, I'll reiterate, just keep showing up, get active and stay active, and the devil's in the details,
Yeah.
like what Otter was saying, the devil's in the planning.
Yeah,
Planning to plan, deciding to decide is the first step. You're gonna do it.
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, congratulations again, you guys. Even though I know you're like, it's not about us as humans. It's, that, and it's about the animals and the continued, animal liberation, keeping that as our world
Yeah.
moving towards, but still, you guys, it's great. It's still great what you
Yeah.
did.
Thank you so much. Wouldn't
Yeah.
have been possible without AAC, I think.
Yeah, no.
Thank you for the shout out there. Any other groups you want to shout out?
Um, I think, well, it was the Richmond group that got me inspired, actually. We met somebody who organized for them and through AAC, of course. Um, and they inspired me to do this. But foie gras is kind of personal to me as well because I raised a Muscovy duck when I was like 4 years old. And they were like my first animal connection that I like really like became attached and like realized the emotional depth of animals. So this win meant a lot for me because of that. Um it's always good to like remember who you're fighting for, I guess.
Yeah. Wow, I bet when you had that beautiful companion duck that you never thought in a million years back then that you'd be sitting where you are now,
Yeah.
a successful campaign against torturing ducks
Yeah.
and abusing ducks,
I
like
get
look
angry.
at look at
Don't
that
get sad, get
trajectory.
angry.
Yeah,
It's
when you get angry, it's personal. Like you're like, I
yes.
don't mean it's personal, like you're feeling it, like the emotion, like you said. And I think most activists are emotional, and we want to channel that emotionality,
Yeah,
of course, and harness it, but not let it get out of hand. But I think that's a lot of what the optics are, the misconceptions of the optics of activists are, that we're just mad at everybody, we're angry, we're just, we are militant, whatever that is. No, we just really strongly, really care and feel the
no,
pain. We feel the animal's pain, and it's not okay.
absolutely.
Not okay.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much. I'm just gonna close out with a few AAC housekeeping things, kind of. Uh, for as little as $2 a month, please consider becoming a patron by finding AAC on Patreon. Your donations allow AAC to continue to provide free educational resources for activists, which ultimately saves more animals If you're interested in becoming a mentor mentee or want to get involved, please visit our website and reach out to us. Please hit subscribe here on our YouTube channel and give us a like if you kindly would. And again, the reminder as we close that this is a marathon, not a sprint. Movements take time to build. Please do not give up. And until next time, stay strong, get active, and live vegan. AAC signing off. Bye, you guys. Bye, y'all out there. Bye, y'all.